What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show. I've not really done a live video in quite some time. I think the last live video I did was after Joe Burrow got injured against the Ravens, which was a couple months ago. But, this video, I'm going to be doing two Bengals 7-round mock drafts, two different scenarios. Mock drafts for Cincinnati right now are absolutely all over the place because we don't know what's going to happen for free agency. It's kind of a domino effect. After free agency happens, and we kind of have a better idea of what happens with the Bengals, who they may draft. But this draft and this offseason, I think, is one of the most crucial drafts in free agency the Bengals have ever had. Let's go ahead and get into the first mock draft here. So, like I said, there's so many different scenarios. So in round one, the Bengals have the 18th pick in the first round, and with that selection, they take Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner. This is by far the best player available here. If you've seen my videos before, and if you've seen my mock draft videos, I would much rather take a best player available than a team need. And I know we took Murphy in round one last season, but he was a guy who you kind of had a general idea he was not going to play a ton of snaps last year in his rookie campaign. But Hendrickson was an absolute beast last season. He was tied for the most sacks in the league heading into the final week of the season. But you take him away, we have a severe lack of pass rush. We do not have many sacks if we take Hendrickson away. But Dallas Turner, he was great for Alabama this past season, 14 and a half tackles for loss and 10 sacks. He's a guy who really should not be here. But both these mock drafts were from Pro Football Network. They're kind of big boards on mock drafts are kind of different compared to other ones, but Dallas Turner here, I know some people might not like this pick, but I think it's a very nice pickup for Cincinnati. So as we get into round two here, this is very interesting because I think regardless of what happens in free agency, obviously the biggest headlines is what's going to happen with T. Higgins and what's going to happen with DJ Reader. I think one of those players will probably get extended and the other will get tagged. And I think the Bengals would definitely take a wide receiver or defensive tackle in the first two rounds. If they don't, I would be absolutely shocked if they don't take a wide receiver or defensive tackle in the first two rounds. So let's say there's a scenario where the Bengals decide to tag DJ Reader. He's coming off a season-ending injury. He was having a pretty good season up until he got hurt. So the Bengals take a defensive tackle here in round two. They take Michael Hall Jr., the defensive tackle from Ohio State, a possible and likely replacement for DJ Reader in this scenario. And, I think this is a really solid pickup here for Cincinnati. It's a good value pick. It's about where he's projected to go. It's a team need. He's one of the better players available here. It's a really nice pickup for the Bengals. But I think this is a really good chance that this will probably be DJ Reader's replacement if the Bengals decide to go defensive tackle in round two. Maybe to take a different defensive tackle in round two. Maybe a guy like Chris Jenkins from Michigan. There's a couple other defensive tackles. Maybe in that round two range, the Bengals can maybe take as well to maybe eventually replace the role of DJ Reader in this Bengals defense. So round three here, I really like this pickup here for Cincinnati to take Kansas State tight end Ben Sinnott. He can do a little bit of everything. He's the only tight end this past season in college football with a PFF grade of 75 with a receiving and 75 run block grades higher than 75. And, when you look at Sinnott, when you look at him and you watch him play, you look at his grades and stuff, he's kind of what the Bengals kind of wish they had in Drew Sample when they drafted him back in 2019. There was so much hopes for Sample when they drafted him in the second round, and he's never lived up to that second round pick they had several years ago with Sample back then. They've tried to use him more in the offense, more of a blocking, but, this is a nice pickup here for the Bengals. I would expect them to maybe go tight end around 3 or 4 if they don't pick one up in free agency. Irv Smith Jr. is a free agent. I do not think they will end up re-signing him. They would be stupid to. He was a absolutely terrible signing for Cincinnati this season. I'm glad they did not give him more money than what they did. They only gave him about $1 million. It was a prove-it deal, and he proved he was not worth that deal at all. But this is a really great pickup here for the Bengals in round three. As we continue in this mock draft, round four, it's one of my favorite picks in this mock draft. There's several picks in this mock draft I like a lot, but this one in particular, Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, the Bengals taken with the 115th pick. Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver of Florida, he's a wide receiver who's just kind of been not going to say unnoticed, but really has not been talked about a ton because he's been overshadowed by some of these top wide receivers from the SEC the last couple of seasons. And when you look at Ricky Pearsall, he's been very, very underrated for the Gators the last 2 years. He's had 147 targets the last 2 years with Florida. He's only had 3 drops. He's had very inconsistent quarterback play at times. Grant Mertz was good for Florida this year, but when you look at the prior year, the 2022 season, he had Anthony Richardson, but Anthony Richardson was very inaccurate. He had to deal with Richardson's woes at times, throwing the inaccurate deep ball and stuff like that. But Pearsall is a great wide receiver. The last 2 seasons for the Gators, he's had 98 receptions, over 1,800 total yards. He's had 12 touchdowns. I think he has 3 rushing touchdowns the last 2 years with Florida. But this is a nice, solid mid-round pick for Cincinnati. And, I think the Bengals have to hit it out of the park on day 3. Obviously, it's crucial they hit on day 1 and day 2. But Cincinnati needs to get a pick on day 3 who will have a great impact on Cincinnati. I know it's hard to do because they have such a talented and great roster already. But when you look under the Zach Taylor era, it's very lackluster day 3 picks. You take away Evan McPherson, there's no really body that stands out. But when you look at the Marvin Lewis era, it seemed like literally every single season you pretty much knew that Marvin Lewis was going to get somebody. On day 3, he would become a starter and he would be a big piece to this Bengals team. That's not really been the case under Zach Taylor. The last couple of years, they've just been very, very, very bad on day 3 picks. And I'm really hoping that, can kind of change this year and they get some nice, solid day 3 picks this season. The next day 3 pick, round 5 here with the 147th pick, they take Missouri offensive tackle Javon Foster. This is a great pickup. Honestly, he should not be available here. And, I don't really like the Bengals drafting offensive linemen on day 3 because I kind of feel like it's a wasted pick. But Foster, like I said, I think he's underrated and he should not be here. He has one of the highest PFF grades of any offensive tackle this past season in college football. Why not take a chance on him? Maybe he could be a project. But at the same time, we've kind of seen what the offensive linemen we've drafted the last couple of years on day 3. They've not turned out to be anything. Guys like Akeem Adeniji, you guys like Jonah Williams, who was even a first-round pick. Like the Bengals cannot develop offensive linemen to save their life. And, why not take Foster here in the 5th round? With him being a 5th-round pick compared to being a first-round pick, it's a low-risk, high-reward situation. There's much more risk than taking an offensive lineman in rounds 1 or 2. We've proven time and time again we can't really develop offensive linemen. Offensive lineman pretty much has to be proven a good, reliable starter who's already been in the league for a couple of years, and then come to Cincinnati, then compared to the Bengals developing an offensive lineman that they drafted, because they've proven they cannot do that whatsoever. So take Javon Foster, the offensive tackle Missouri, in the 5th round here. I think this is the most underrated player in college football. In the draft process. That is James Madison edge rusher Jalen Green. Jalen Green is an absolute beast. In only 9 games for James Madison, he had 21 tackles for loss and 15.5 sacks in just 9 games. I mean, you cannot get that in a video game. That is absolutely insane. I am a big Marshall fan, and, Marshall played James Madison earlier this season. Jalen Green had 5 sacks against Marshall this past season. That was absolutely ridiculous. Every single play, he was pressuring the quarterback left and right. He was, getting in the quarterback's face, pressuring him, sacking him, whatever it may be. But Jalen Green is an absolute beast. If he played at Ohio State or Alabama, he would be like a top 10 pick. The fact that he's playing at a small school like James Madison, I feel is a big reason why he's projected to go so low. But Jalen Green, watch out for him. I think he will be one of the best day 3 picks, regardless of where he goes in the draft. He's one of the biggest sleepers in the entire draft this season. Another big sleeper to me is Marshall running back Rasheen Ali. He's one of my favorite players in the draft as well. I've made several videos about him before, saying why he's one of the most underrated running backs in college football the last couple of seasons. I'm sure some of you have heard of Rasheen Ali the past couple of days. Earlier in the week in the Senior Bowl practice, he was absolutely tearing it up, and he was one of the biggest winners in the Senior Bowl practice. But it was reported by Tom Pelissero earlier today that Ali suffered a ruptured bicep tendon, and the recovery time is 4 to 6 months. So pretty much everything that you heard the past couple of days about the Rasheen Ali hype, throw it out the window. I would expect Ali to go maybe a late 5th to 7th round pick now. He was really, really helping us draft stock. And if he had a good Senior Bowl, he could have maybe even been a day 2 pick, depending how much teams liked him a lot. But Ali's one of the most underrated running backs in this draft process. I mean, this past season, he had 1,100 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns. He had 174 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns against Virginia Tech. And then look at his freshman year in 2021. Rasheen Ali had 1,400 rushing yards as a freshman back in 2021, and he led college football as a freshman with 23 rushing touchdowns. That is absolutely incredible. Rasheen Ali is one of the most underrated players, one of the most underrated running backs in the entire draft so far. And I still think he'll get drafted because the team might take a late round flyer on him because it's one of those low risk, high rewards. Maybe, he doesn't come back from this injury, but, who knows? You got to take a chance on him, a guy who's proven time and time again that he can compete with some of the best players in college football. Like I said, having 174-yard performance and 2 touchdowns against Virginia Tech earlier this season. A couple more picks here in this mock draft, the first of 2 mock drafts. I take another Marshall player here with a 7th round pick with 234th overall. They take Micah Abraham. His dad used to play for the Falcons years ago, and Abraham was a very, very underrated corner for Marshall. He kind of goes unnoticed because some of the other players aren't throwing her defense the past couple of years, but he's had 10 interceptions the last 2 years. He has 39 passes defended the last 3 years. That is really, really, really high passes defended the last 3 years. That's averaging 13 a season. But it's one of those times when you look at Cincinnati, they kind of tend to take secondary players when it comes to 6th, 7th round picks. We took DJ Ivy last season. There's been several other instances where we take a guy in the secondary with one of our last picks as well. But I think Micah Abraham is a solid pickup here for the Bengals in the 7th round. And the last pickup here in this, the first of 2 mock drafts here, they take Middle Tennessee safety Trey Fluellen. Fluellen's had over 160 tackles the last two seasons for Middle Tennessee. He's had 5 interceptions the last 2 years. And in 2022, he led Conference USA in tackles. He had 104 tackles during the 2022 season with the Blue Raiders. I think he is a guy who, why not take a chance on him? Kind of like I said, they kind of tend to take players in the secondary, it seems like in the later rounds, and to take Micah Abraham here with their first 7th round pick, and then they take Trey Fluellen, the safety from Middle Tennessee, with their second 7th round pick. So that was the first of 2 mock drafts here. The second mock draft, there's some picks in here I don't like a ton, but there's a couple of picks I absolutely love. To start this second mock draft here, they take Alabama offense tackle J.C. Latham. This is a fantastic pickup. Best player available, I would say by far. This will be your Jonah Williams replacement, and this will save them a lot of money so they don't have to sign a expensive right tackle in the offseason, and they don't have to re-sign Jonah Williams, which I don't really think that's going to be a scenario anyway. But you're getting your right tackle in the future, and hopefully this Bengals team can finally develop an offensive lineman. They've not been able to develop one forever, like I said, but this is a great pickup here for Cincinnati. By far, I would say the best player available, best offensive tackle available, more than likely. Great pickup here with the Bengals' first round pick with the 18th pick overall. The second round, like I said, realistically, I think rounds 1 and 2, they're going to take a defensive tackle or wide receiver with their first or second round pick. And I had them taking Michael Hall Jr., the defensive tackle from Ohio State, in the first mock draft. And with the second mock draft, I had them taking a defensive tackle again. This time I had them taking Michigan defensive tackle Chris Jenkins. This is realistically another player who could possibly be a replacement for DJ Reader. Reader is one of my favorite Bengal players, but like I said, he's coming off a season-ending injury. He's much older than T. Higgins. Realistically, I see the Bengals maybe extending Higgins and tagging Reader compared to them maybe extending Reader and tagging Higgins. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think that's probably going to what's end up happening for Cincinnati. And then you tag Reader, you have him on the team for 1 more year, see what he has left in him, and then you're slowly developing Chris Jenkins to fill that void that more than likely DJ Reader will leave this upcoming season if he is franchise tagged. But it's a solid pickup here for Cincinnati in round 2 of the draft. The last mock draft, I had them taking a tight end, and this other in the round 3, and I have another round 3 tight end here. I had them taking Cade Stover, the tight end from Ohio State. Rounds 3 or 4, I think, is where Cincinnati will probably take a tight end, unless there is an insane scenario where Georgia tight end Brock Bowers drops to Cincinnati to 18, which I think is highly, highly unlikely. I'm getting a tight end here around 3 or 4. It's not a bad idea for Cincinnati. I feel like after Sennett and Stover, there's quite a bit of a drop-off from tight ends when you go to the 3rd round compared to the 4th round. So why not go ahead and get a tight end here in Stover, who's been pretty productive for the Buckeyes the past couple of seasons. I really like this pickup here for Cincinnati. And, in this second mock draft here, this is by far my favorite pickup here. This is not even close. I think this is the best value pick when you combine both these mock drafts. I don't know how he fell this far. I don't know why he's not projected to be a 1st-round pick or early 2nd-round pick. Wisconsin running back Braylon Allen has been absolutely sensational his 3 years with the Wisconsin Badgers. I don't know why he is not in these, 1st-round mock drafts or first-round mock drafts, early 2nd-round mock drafts. It just doesn't make any sense. But some way, somehow, Braylon Allen fell at the 115th pick in the 4th round. I wasn't really planning on taking a running back here, but when I saw Allen available, it was pretty much a no-brainer. You have to take a guy like Braylon Allen if he's there in the 4th round. This will be 100% your Joe Mixon replacement. Braylon Allen reminds me a lot of Jonathan Taylor, a bruising running back who we know break tackles. He's a great, great running back. In 3 years with Wisconsin, he's had 3,500 rushing yards and 35 rushing touchdowns. He's been one of the best running backs in college football for the past couple of years, and that's why I don't understand why he's so low on some of these mock draft lists and some of these mock draft, power rankings. It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And when you look at Braylon Allen, he's a guy who's played 3 years in college football, and he just turned 20 just a month or so ago. That is absolutely insane. He has 3 years of college football under his belt, and he's only 20 years old compared to, Joe Mixon, who's around 27 or 28. This would be a great pickup if Cincinnati's able to get it done. Even in the 3rd round with the 80th pick overall, if Cincinnati's able to get Braylon Allen in the 3rd round, that's a great value pick. The fact that they get Allen here in the 4th round is terrific value, and I think would kind of maybe start the trend of them getting actually great pickups in day 3. Because like I said, day 3, the Bengals the last couple of years, they've not really been able to have a great selection on day 3 when you take away Evan McPherson. This would kind of start hopefully the trend that they get some nice players on day 3. But they get Braylon Allen, the running back for Wisconsin, here in the 4th round. In this mock draft, Cincinnati has yet to take a wide receiver, but this changes here with the 5th round pick. With the 147th pick overall, they take Rice wide receiver Luke McCaffrey. He is the younger brother of Christian McCaffrey. He is really, really underrated. He started his career off at Nebraska. He finishes at Rice. This past season, he had over 70 receptions, nearly 1,000 receiving yards, and he had 13 receiving touchdowns. When you look at T. Higgins, I think there's a small chance he leaves. Realistically, I'd say there's probably like a 90% chance the Bengals will retain Higgins, whether it's an extension or whether it is maybe a franchise tag even. But, Tyler Boyd's pretty much a lock to not play for the Bengals this opening season. I know Charlie Jones will be, Tyler Boyd's replacement, but why not get another young receiver? And I think Luke McCaffrey would be really, really good. The first mock draft, I had them getting Ricky Pearsall. This one, I had them getting McCaffrey. Either one to me would be a great pickup, especially the value picks here for Cincinnati. But they get Luke McCaffrey, the wide receiver from Rice, in the 5th round. They have 2 5th-round picks. So with their second 5th-round pick, they take LSU linebacker Omar Speights. I don't think this is a bad pickup here. When you look at linebacker, you can never have too many good linebackers. Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are one of the better linebacker duos in the NFL this season. And they're one of the better linebacker duos in the NFL, but both of them, to me, I think they both kind of had a drop off in production, especially Jermaine Pratt. Just get a little bit more help at linebacker, excuse me. I don't think Spates is going to play a ton of snaps, but we did Akeem Davis-Gaither. I believe he is a free agent. There's a couple of other linebackers. The Bengals have free agents as well. I don't think it's a bad pickup here for Cincinnati in the 5th round. In the 6th round, I had them taking Troy running back Kamani Vidal. He is extremely underrated. He led the Sun Belt in rushing yards this past season. He had over 1,600 rushing yards this past season. He was absolutely incredible. He was the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year. One bad thing about Vidal, he's only 5'8", so he does have that against him. If he was maybe 6 foot, 5'10", 5'11", something like that, I feel like his draft value and his draft projection would be much higher. But the fact that he's only 5'8" and he's not really super, super fast, considering how small he is, that's also kind of an issue. But why not take a chance on him here? He may not even make the team because you already drafted Allen. Obviously, you're going to have Mixon on the team, and you will have Chase Brown. But Vidal is not a bad pickup here for Cincinnati, taking the running back out of Troy here in the 6th round. The Bengals have 2 7th-round picks, and with their first 7th-round pick, they take James Madison, defensive tackle Jamri Chroma. He is extremely underrated. And when you look at this James Madison team this past season, there was so much hype around them. They were undefeated. College Game Day was at James Madison. They were very, very good. But because of their defense, they had Jalen Green, who, like I said, had 21 tackles for loss in just 9 games. And then you look at Chroma. He is a defensive tackle, but he had 19 and a half tackles for loss and 10 sacks as a defensive tackle. That is absolutely unheard of. This James Madison defensive line was one of the best in the entire country this past season. Like I said, a guy like Jalen Green had 5 sacks against Marshall earlier this year, and you're having a defensive tackle get 10 sacks. Your other edge rusher had 15 and a half sacks in just 9 games. Like, both of these guys are really, really good. If Cincinnati is able to get either one of these James Madison defensive linemen, I'd be very, very happy. This is a really nice value pickup here for Cincinnati. This Chroma is one of the more underrated defensive tackles in the draft, in my opinion. And for whatever reason, lots of these projections, he's not even projected to be drafted, which I think is absolutely insane. But I think this is a great pickup here for the Bengals. So the Bengals have 1 pick left in the draft. Like I said, they have 2 7th-round picks. And with their second 7th-round pick, they take Marshall edge rusher Owen Porter. Owen Porter, to me, I think is extremely underrated. He's a guy who's not going to wow you with his speed, but he's going to give it 110% literally every single play. I mean, he is absolutely all over the field, and he's been a huge part of the Marshall's success on defense the past couple of seasons. He is from Huntington. Marshall plays in Huntington. He was a fan favorite for the Thunder Herd the past couple of seasons. He's one of my favorite Marshall players the past couple of years. But Porter, to me, is a great pickup here for the Bengals. Realistically, I would say Porter probably goes undrafted just because of his size, because he's a guy who he's too small to play linebacker, but he's also kind of too slow to play edge. So it's one of those situations where, he may find himself being an undrafted free agent, but I would honestly be surprised if he was drafted. I just kind of took him here because I really, really like him. And I would like it for the Bengals to maybe, draft him in a 7th-round pick, or maybe take him as an undrafted free agent. But, when you're looking at these 2 mock drafts, I think either mock draft here, the Bengals really had it out of the park. In this mock draft, they took, an offensive tackle early. Then they took Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle from Michigan in round 2. Cade Stover, Braylon Allen. I mean, those are home run picks. In my opinion, those are all great picks. Those are the first couple rounds of the second mock draft. The first mock draft, both of these mock drafts were from Pro Football Network, from the mock draft simulator. The first mock draft I did, they were able to get Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner. In the second round, they got Ohio State defensive tackle Michael Hall Jr. In the third round, Kansas State tight end Ben Sinnott. And in the 4th round, they took Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. And then they had, a couple of rest of the day 3 picks, like I kind of mentioned. But either mock draft, to me, will be great for Cincinnati if they were able to get even half these players. That kind of does it for this video. Comment which mock draft you liked more, and comment some players you would like for the Bengals draft in April. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're new to the channel or we've seen videos before, make sure to like this video, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to see you all next time on the Sports Behind Show.